Thoughts on why some people only show up when they need something from you? They seem to have no problem taking, but never giving. The world isn't as perfect as we think it is, and people often put on a polished front to get away with things. There will always be people who take advantage of you, no matter how nice or generous you are. Some of these people are honest about it, but others are sneakier and get away with it. Today, we'll look at 10 signs that someone is only using you and doesn't care about you. It's important to remember that now is not the time to judge or criticize. Instead, it's the time to learn more about people and how to stay strong and calm in tough situations. Here are some ways to tell if someone is lying to you. Set clear limits and make yourself strong so you can handle the problems of life before we begin. You should watch this whole video because it has a lot of important information that will change your life. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on our channel right now. Let's talk about the first attitude, which is a persistent lack of respect for other people. A lack of respect isn't just one action. It's a series of actions that show you don't care or are cold. A true friend or loyal companion always treats you with respect, cares about you, and shares responsibility. People who take advantage of you, on the other hand, often don't care about these basic rules. If you look more closely, you'll see that this attitude forms a pattern of behavior that shows selfishness and lack of care. They often criticize you unfairly, and no matter how hard you try, they put down your work. Sometimes they even make fun of or embarrass you in front of other people. Imagine having your plans canceled at the last minute or others always being late. It seems like they expect you to meet their needs and preferences. These behaviors, you might start to question your skills and self-worth if you feel unappreciated and unimportant. This can make you feel hopeless, lose your way, and even depressed. But it's important to remember that flaws are part of being human. The difference between someone taking advantage of you and other people is that the abuser keeps doing it over time and doesn't try to stop. Life is always changing, and a lot of people feel stuck in a never-ending cycle of trying to please others and find acceptance only to be rejected and ignored. The important thing is to realize that you deserve respect and care, and you shouldn't put up
with any less. Your life is like a journey on a ship, and you are the captain. Find out what you're really worth and then rebuild your confidence from that. Understanding. The ongoing lack of respect is a problem that can show up in many areas of life, such as personal relationships, jobs, communities, and interactions with other people. When people in groups don't respect each other, it can lead to many bad things like fights, confusion, mistrust, and less health for everyone involved. If you don't respect someone for a long time, here are some things that might happen and why. The conversation splitting up. People need to respect each other in order to talk to each other well. When people don't respect each other, they can't communicate well, which can lead to mistakes. A lot of fights and anger rising wide, and if people don't respect each other, arguments are more likely to get worse because people will fight back instead of trying to find a middle ground or solution. Low spirits. When people don't feel respected at work, they may feel ignored or undervalued, which makes them less motivated and less productive. Loss of trust. Respect is a must for building and keeping trust between people and within groups. When people don't respect each other, trust can weaken, which makes it hard to work together and reach shared goals. Negative effect on mental health. Being disrespected over and over again can be bad for your mental health, making you more likely to feel worry, anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Strengthening power differences. When people don't respect each other, power differences can get worse, with people in power or advantage controlling others without thinking about their worth or freedom. Getting rid of a persistent lack of respect takes a multifaceted approach that includes raising awareness, building empathy, making rules for behavior clear, and creating a culture of respect and acceptance. This could mean putting in place training programs, rules of behavior, helping people work out their differences, and holding people accountable for what they did. In the end, everyone in a group or community has to keep working hard to build a culture of respect. Number 2, not keeping your promises. Making promises is a great way to stay committed to a relationship, but it's also easy to break. People who want to take advantage of you will lie to you and put something or someone else ahead of you. Think of your relationship as a play, where words are the main character and
deeds are just lines that get lost. People who break promises are often perfect for the daily drama because they seem caring and promise to be your friend and support in every situation. However, the truth is that they may promise to help you with a project, be there for you in a tough time, or just spend time talking and sharing in. But when it comes to action and keeping their word, they often become vague like actors who can't do their jobs. Well, it separates people who see relationships as two-way streets of respect and support from people who only see relationships as a way to get what they want from them for themselves. When things go wrong, they often teach us hard but important lessons. When this happens, we need to learn how to recognize and set boundaries in relationships. This will not only help us avoid being used, but it will also boost our self-esteem and give us more freedom in our relationships. Sometimes, it's best to say no, or stay away from people who only want to use us without giving us anything in return. Seeing unhealthy relationships early on and leaving them behind not only keeps us safe, but also frees us up to spend time and energy on healthier, more meaningful relationships. Never forget that what other people do for you doesn't determine your worth. What you know about yourself and what you do for yourself does. Promises are more than just words. They're what people count on and trust. On the other hand, broken promises can have bad effects on relationships, self-esteem, and how people see themselves. We will talk about why keeping your word is important and what happens when you don't. Explain that a promise is a promise, or understanding that you will do something. Talk about what promises mean in different parts of your life, like how relationships work and how you deal with other people. Stress how important it is to keep your promises, to keep relationships healthy and build trust. Why folks break their word. People often break their promises because they forget, aren't serious, or things happen that are out of their control. Talk about what could happen if you take on too much and try to please everyone. Make sure they know how important it is to keep their promises and be honest. Ways relationships have changed. Check out how breaking promises can hurt trust and relationships. Talk about the bad feelings that both sides had, like anger, sadness, and betrayal. Give some examples of how broken promises can lead to issues and confusion in both
personal and professional settings. Getting trust back. If you break a promise, think about ways to rebuild trust, like saying sorry in a real way, taking responsibility and showing that you can be trusted over time. Talk about how important it is to speak and be honest to win back trust. Stress how important it is to be reliable by following through on things regularly. Take a moment to think about your own life. Tell your kids to think about the times they kept promises. Have them talk about how broken promises have affected their relationships and lives. Teach your kids what they need to work on and how to set reasonable goals for themselves and others. It's not enough to be honest and keep your promises. It's also important for keeping relationships healthy and building trust in all areas of life. We can make society more trustworthy and build better relationships if everyone knows what happens when promises are broken and commits to being honest, dependable, and responsible. All the time, we all very familiar with the game of chess where each move is carefully calculated, not only to improve one's own position, but also to strategically undermine the opponent. Similarly, in our relationships, there are individuals with hidden motives who often treat your relationship as a strategic game. In this type of relationship, you often feel undervalued and unappreciated. The other person frequently appears competitive, not only in necessary situations but also in normal circumstances, making you feel uneasy and tense. They not only do not listen to your opinions, but also frequently interrupt or devalue what you say. This constant competition manifests in various forms in personal relationships. This person often elevates themselves and belittles you, even in the smallest achievements, when you accomplish something instead of sharing joy. They become envious or attempt to diminish your achievements in a professional environment. They often use tactics like excuses, distorting the truth, or even lying to maintain their dominant position in meetings. This not only makes you less likely to believe them, but it also makes the conversation tense and unsafe. Even when you're just talking, you can tell when they're trying to show how smart or more successful or better they are. This people act out because they are afraid and have a skewed view of their own worth. They judge their own worth by how well they do compared to others, not by what they have accomplished. This turns every
encounter into a race where one person has to win and the other, in this case you, has to lose. This way of thinking stops people from growing together in favor of wanting to look good and unique. Not only does this relationship not give you the support and encouragement you need, but it also has unhealthy competition that is bad for your health and spirit. It makes the relationship constantly tense because competition takes the place of real cooperation or support. It's important to see and understand this pattern of behavior because it helps us set limits and, if necessary, change the relationship to make it healthier. Part of this process is realizing that every relationship is different. Interested in the specifics, personal concern for getting along with other people. A big red flag is also a lack of personal interest. To not only not care but also not recognize or feel emotionally connected, this is a sign. If someone doesn't take the time to understand and care about the little things in your life, it's likely that they see this relationship as a means to an end, rather than a two-way bond. You may notice that they forget things you've told them, like your interests, dreams, or even fears. They might also forget about important days, like your birthdays or anniversaries, which makes you feel not only ignored, but also worthless in their eyes. This lack of interest is also clear in how they treat your emotions. They might brush off or downplay your worries and sorrows, seeing them as bothersome or unimportant. This not only makes you feel lonely in the relationship, but can also make it a bad place where you don't feel safe, for example. If you have a friend who only cares about themselves and never asks about your life feelings or dreams, you may feel like you're just listening to their story and that they aren't really interested in you. This lack of interest is a clear sign that this person sees you only for what you can do for them. Instead of who you are in these situations, you should ask yourself if this relationship is healthy. The lack of these things can mean that you need to rethink how important this relationship is in your life. The lack of personal interest in a relationship is a warning sign that we need to rethink our connections and look for a place where we are valued and respected. If you've made it this far, you are one of the few people who is really looking to grow as a person. Number 5, what a superficial link is and how it works. When someone
only wants to use you and doesn't care about you. It's normal for relationships to be weak, but this sign is especially dangerous because it hides how the relationship really is. People who use you often don't want to connect with you in a deep way. People who act this way usually don't have deep relationships with others. For example, a friend who doesn't care about how you feel, or a coworker who only calls you when they need help. When someone only cares about what they can get from the other person, and not their feelings or needs, this can happen in family or romantic relationships. We can tell that there isn't any real attachment or care for the other person's feelings or well-being in these types of relationships. People who use you often only see you as a way to get what they want and don't care how their actions affect you. One of the worst things about this type of relationship is that it can hurt the person being used mentally and lower their self-esteem. If you feel like you're not being cared for or appreciated all the time, you may start to doubt your own worth and think you can't change the situation. It takes courage and self-awareness to leave this kind of relationship. You need to know your own worth and set clear boundaries. Remember that you deserve real, honest connections. Recognizing the signs of a shallow relationship is the first thing you can do to protect your mind and soul. It's also a chance to look for deeper, more meaningful relationships where you can share, experience depth, and exchange. It's important to understand superficial links. A superficial connection is when two people talk to each other or have ties that aren't very deep or emotional. If you want to get along with other people and build relationships, avoid casual connections. Most of the time, these relationships are based on simple things like how they look, hobbies, or just getting to know someone. Here are some important things to think about and how links that aren't very deep work. Level 1 interaction. Level 1 interactions, such as having the same hobbies, friends, or interests, are what lead to Level 2 connections. Most of the time, these interactions stay on the surface and don't go into deeper thoughts or conversations. Shallow emotional connections. Shallow emotional connections aren't as close or deep as deeper ones. People can talk or do things together.
If you want to create lasting relationships, you must invest the time and energy necessary to establish genuine connections through in-depth conversations. Understanding how surface-level connections function can help people handle social circumstances more skillfully and focus more on creating genuine relationships that will provide them long-term satisfaction and support. See number 6. Be honest and sincerely attempt to understand and connect with others on a deeper level. Use feelings as a weapon against others. Someone who manipulates your emotions subtly and frequently uses them as a tool to achieve their goals is clearly using you. This is evident when they place you in situations that cause you to feel confused, guilty, or ashamed. They also know how to use words or actions to elicit specific emotions in you, making it simple to manipulate or alter your decisions. Emotional influence can take many different forms and levels of complexity. For instance, someone may compliment you excessively to make you feel like you have to return the favor, which they then use to make demands that are too difficult for you to meet. They may also try to destroy your relationships with other people by isolating you and making you feel more vulnerable to their control. The manipulator always has more power than the target because they choose when to show affection and when to withdraw, upsetting the target's equilibrium. In summary, emotional manipulation is not about mutual growth or support. Rather, it is about the manipulator only caring about meeting their own needs without considering the psychological well-being of others. Not only does emotional trickery cause people to lose trust and self-esteem, but it also makes them doubt their ability to judge the character of others. You may be stuck in a bad relationship and not know how to get out of it, because you've been lied to and managed so much that you can't see the truth. Making you feel used and uncared for in an unequal relationship is number 7. The individual employing this tactic is adept at controlling you by appealing to your feeling of duty, justice, or obligation. As a result, they may continuously complain or express disappointment about your actions or inactions, placing emotional and psychological pressure on you. They may use specific circumstances to instill guilt in you, such as emphasizing how much you depend on their assistance and portraying it as a burden. They may also say things like, "After everything I've done for you, is this how you treat me to make you feel obligated to say yes to their requests?" Lastly, they could make you feel bad about decisions or relationships that are personal to you and have nothing to do with them. The reason this method works so well is that it capitalizes on the natural human desire to think of oneself as kind, helpful, and caring by making you feel guilty. The person using this method then uses these positive traits as tools to control you, making you do things out of obligation rather than choice, which can leave you feeling angry or exhausted. More importantly, this attitude not only creates a toxic psychological environment, but can also cause deep and lasting damage to your mental health. You may become less confident and feel insecure all the time, which can make it more difficult for you to establish and maintain healthy relationships in the future. Acknowledging when someone is using guilt as a control mechanism is crucial for safeguarding your privacy and mental health. I can explain why some people might want to hurt other people's feelings and how to handle such situations in a kind and positive way. You seem to be asking for advice on how to make someone feel bad, but I want to stress that doing so on purpose is not a good or moral thing to do. People may try to hurt other people because they are jealous, scared, or want power and control. They probably act the way they do because of their own problems, not because of anything you did. Sensitivity and kindness. Having compassion and understanding for others helps ease uncomfortable situations. Consider other people's perspectives and show respect for their feelings, even if you don't always agree with their actions. Establishing boundaries. If someone persistently tries to bring you down, you should establish boundaries. Set clear boundaries for them and politely but firmly inform them that their actions are unacceptable. Take care of yourself, feel good about yourself, surround yourself with supportive people, and engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. Communication abilities. Improve your ability to communicate so that you can express your thoughts and feelings more clearly. If you are assertive, you can stand up for your needs and boundaries without being abrasive or submissive. If someone's actions are truly upsetting you, don't be afraid to ask for support from friends, family, or a mental health professional. Speaking with someone can help you see things from a different angle and determine how to manage the situation. Keep in mind, though, that making other people feel terrible only makes matters worse. Instead, you should try to be friends with them and treat them with respect. Care number 8. Not enough genuine support. Moving on, let's discuss the 8th factor, which is an attitude we can see in our own relationships, not really supporting each other. You may feel that the other person doesn't want to commit to your goals or cares about you. They may be there for you when you need them, but not when you need them. In these kinds of relationships, your goals, projects, and challenges are frequently met with coldness or only token acts of support. The other person may not fully support your plans, but they may wish you luck or say they do. This can have a negative impact on your mental and emotional well-being, leading you to question your own value and believe you don't deserve love. When people prioritize their own needs over those of others, they become less supportive of others because they view relationships as transactions and evaluate emotional investment in terms of personal gain. This creates a vicious cycle of low self-esteem and distrust in interpersonal relationships,